on stage was the one time I felt like this is my superpower. Everybody's blowing me up like, oh, you made it. But I'm just like, no, bro, I'm going through a lot. Oh no, what have I done? Oh my God, I'm going to hell. What the fuck is happening? There's no way she just got diagnosed in May. And now you're telling me it's stage 4. What the fuck? How did this happen? She had me stand in the mirror and just say over and over again, I'm not gay, I'm confident, I'm all. And then the guilt set in. Oh no, what have I done? Oh my God, I'm going to hell. The pastor says, we want all the men to stand up with their sons. And I have to sit there. Being on stage was the one time I felt like this is my superpower and nobody else can take this from me. Everybody's blowing me up like, oh, you made it, you're blowing up. And I'm just like, no, bro, I'm going through a lot. I screamed, I can't hold this in anymore. And you're telling me that my mom is going to die. They tell us that she doesn't have very many days left.
Before we get into today's episode, I just want to give some viewer discretion. On the CYR podcast, we do talk about some traumatic things at times. We do get really deep. My whole purpose behind this podcast is being able to shed light on conversations that we normally won't have. CYR stands for Clean Your Room, and I believe there are multiple rooms that we have. Not only our physical room where you might have some clothes on the floor, you might not have dust behind your dresser like you're supposed to, or even taking out your trash, but you also got this room right here. And these conversations that we're having on this show is all about cleaning this room right here. So if you're watching this right now, and you got some free time, set your phone down or wherever you're watching, put it on your TV, go into your physical room, clean your room while we clean this one right here. Now let's get into today's conversation.
You know, I've been singing since age 3, so music has always been a part of my life. I remember some of my earliest memories, being in the back of the car. My mom had it was a 2001, I'll never forget, a 2001 blue Chevy Malibu. And we'd be riding around and I'd be in the back seat and she would have, different, either sometimes playing the radio, but a lot of times it would be, different gospel mixtapes, CDs, and it would be just a who's who of different artists, and I would be in the backseat just kind of singing along and listening, and she would kind of be in the front. And I would do kind of that thing, as I got older that kids sometimes do, where it's like, no, I'm singing, you don't sing, I want to sing the lead. And so it would be kind of like that. Or, I was always that kid that just loved music, loved to be the center of attention. So, not just the back of the car, but at family functions, of course, at church, like you mentioned, even at school, like music has just always been a part of who I am. Yeah.
I feel that. Your mom was a big singer as well too, yes. Yeah. I remember she used to sing in the choir at church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I get a lot of, the passion for music in general from her. And I remember early on, she really encouraged me to become a bit more of a well-rounded musician, singer, artist, not just being okay doing one genre, but really exposing me to all types. So now, granted, she was very careful about what I could and could not listen to. So, if I was listening to certain songs that would be on the radio, it'd have to be the radio friendly version.
Yeah.
Couldn't be no cursing, couldn't be, just certain stuff that she would be like, nah, turn that off. But yeah, like she would expose me to classical music, definitely, Motown, old soul, Earth, Wind and Fire, Jackson 5, Temptations, Diana Ross, all of them. Trying to think who else. Yeah, I just remember just music being in the home, and again, different family functions. It would always be a point where somebody would break out in song, either kind of in a more serious manner, or even if it was just in a joking manner. Like there would always be music somewhere factored in.
I feel that. I
Yeah.
feel that. What's good, y'all? Before we get into today's episode, I have a huge favor to ask. If you could just hit that subscribe button right below this video. It's the free thing that you can do to help continue to grow this channel. I'm not charging anybody as of yet to watch these episodes, and my plan and my goal is to never have to charge anybody. When you subscribe, what that does is it shows the algorithm that this pod is something that everybody should see. And if you truly believe that, just hit that subscribe button. Now, let's get back to the show. Can you talk a little bit about a point we talked about off camera, just briefly, but music being like an identifying factor for you when it came to just like different social situations, or even just like connecting with other individuals? Because it sounds like in the family dynamic, music was definitely a connection enhancer.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the only thing that brought you together, but it was always something that enhanced the environment. But outside of that, it almost seems like it's something that helped to bridge a barrier between you and other people.
So I was that kid, like I said, that liked, to be the center of attention, that liked to be liked. But as I got older and got into like middle school age, that started to backfire a bit. And I started to get, picked on and bullied a lot because of the fact that I grew up a bit more sheltered than some of the other kids. And not only that, but I also grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. So going from a predominantly white neighborhood to a middle school that is in a predominantly black neighborhood, and yeah, the culture shock was very real. But I would try my best to connect and to make friends and, get people to like me, befriend me, if you will. But they just were not having it until, I started to open up my mouth and sing. Then that would kind of cause people not necessarily to, want to be friends, but it would kind of get people up off me a little bit. It'd be like, yeah, you corny. Yeah, you a nerd. Yeah, you a mama's boy. Yeah, your pants are flooding. Yeah, you wearing, you wearing the Walmart off-brand shoes while everybody else is wearing Jordans. But we gonna give you a pass because you can sing. So it's like, all right, okay, yeah. So I would kind of use that to my advantage, and yeah, just try to get people to back up off me a little bit, because yeah, middle school was it was a rough time. It was a very rough time. I have intentionally tried over the years to block out a lot of those memories because it was a very hard time for me, as it is for a lot of kids, but for me especially. I just remember, trying to get, again, people to like me, befriend me. And then there were the times where, there were the kids where I knew, oh, you're going out of your way to pick on me and to try to, get a rise out of me. And so that's where the not so pleasant side of me would pop out. And, it would become like a war of words, and often I would be the one to win. They would say something and I would just be like, oh, you want to go there? Okay, so I'm going to go low. I kind of blame, again, being a sheltered child for that. I watched a lot of television growing up, particularly like sitcoms, and I would kind of, I don't want to say model myself, but like I would watch certain characters on these different shows that were known for like the quick wit and getting back at somebody quick, and I would kind of adopt that mentality and personality and take that on if, I'm getting into it with somebody and I'd be like, oh, okay, so you want to talk about X, Y, and Z? Well, okay, well, I'm going, and I'm hitting below the belt.
Yeah.
But I would be the one to get in trouble, even though it was, both of us, I would be the one to get in trouble either A, because of what I said, or because I just happened to say it a little louder and everybody else could hear it. So there were quite a few times where I would get to take a little trip to what they would call the administrator's office. What was it? Not in school suspension, but
Pack room.
Yeah, stuff. I would have to sit down with the administrator and have talks with them, and I was a smart kid, so I would try to charm them into seeing it from my point of view, and and it would always kind of result in them reaching out to my mom and saying, hey, just so you know, he's going through this and he's trying his best to stay focused, but socially he's not doing too well. So, just kind of keep tabs on him. And then at one point, family starts to get more involved. Or she would try to get them more involved, but there's only so much you can do, in that particular situation. Yeah, there was only so much they could do. I was just like, no, I'm I'm gonna do this my way.
Yeah.
And y'all can't tell me, not to say something to somebody when they're picking on me. Like, I'm tired. I'm over it. Like, no, you're not gonna keep saying whatever it is the hell you want to say and think that I'm just gonna keep taking it. I may not be able to beat you up, because them niggas had hands. I'm not, I wasn't dumb enough to try to fight nobody, because I'm like, no. I'm not gonna do that. But what I can do is either A, sing, or cut you down verbally to the white meat.
You're gonna hear me either way. Either way.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was my middle school journey, and like I said, music was how I would try to connect when moments were more positive.
Absolutely. I'm curious, man. One of the things that you mentioned early on in your last answer was it was some pretty dark times that you intentionally try to block out. Mm-hmm. I wanna open up the Pandora's box to some of the darkness that you were experiencing.
Oh God. Well, okay, so growing up the way I grew up, again, single parent household, raised by mostly women, and the male figures that we did have in the family, they did the best they could the way they knew how. But I remember very early on, like, my mom was like, no, he needs a strong male figure in his life. Not only because of the social problems that I was having, but she started to notice that I had feminine tendencies. And so, that whole thing of like, no, he needs to be around men and, and all of that. And when I got to middle school, again, sheltered kid, so I didn't really know so much about sexuality other than, okay, this is what gay means, or this is, what straight means or whatever. But I wasn't concerned about that. I'm in my own world. But it got to a point where kids would start calling me gay because of, how I would respond, or again, just the way I'm carrying myself just feels natural to me. But they would start calling me gay. And now granted, at the time, it becomes a much longer journey to acceptance. But at the time, I'm like, no, I'm not gay. Like, stop calling me that. And I remember there was one moment where it's kind of traumatic for me, but I came home crying because I was just so frustrated. And she had me stand in the mirror in the bedroom. She had me stand in the mirror, literally stare at myself and just say over and over again, all these different affirmations and, but yeah, saying I'm not gay, I'm confident, and it, like, I get what she was trying to do, but at the time it was just, again, just all of it was very overwhelming for me because it's just like, I don't know, all of the ins and outs. And then, I go out of my way to try to prove to these kids that I'm not gay. So, I start doing like a lot of middle schoolers do and, start making up stories, if you will. Oh yeah, I was with so and so last week, and we got to third base. Ooh, trying to have something to talk about at the lunch table, just to, again, get these kids up off me. Stuff like that, or so yes, okay. So there was one physical altercation. This one was 8th grade, my last year of middle school. And I had kind of a falling out with a friend. Well, I wouldn't say a falling out, if you will, but, we weren't really seeing eye to eye like that. And we both were on the wrestling team. And because, anybody who knows me knows I love professional wrestling. So, I thought, okay, well, maybe this is something I can do. I can be on a sports team, whatever. And there was a young lady on the team, and she was taller than me. And she had, like, I thought I was, kind of intense verbally, but like she was known for like being really loud and like, and I think that was part of it. Like, she wouldn't always necessarily have the better comebacks, but because she was even louder than I was. So we would get into it from time to time, and she would pick on me and say stuff, and everybody around, on the wrestling team would kind of snicker and laugh. And at one point, including the friend. And so now I'm like, yo, you're supposed to, have my back here. And it got to a point at the end of wrestling season where I was completely over it. It was after city finals, or I think either right after or right before. And they had like a little end of the year celebration, whatever, in the gym. And here she goes again, just talking about me, just going on and on and on and on. And I'm just like, I can't take it anymore. And of course, again, the friend is he's not indulging in the conversation too much, but I can see him kind of laughing, and he's not bothering to say anything. He's not bothering to stop it. So me being the fed up middle schooler I am, I go to the gym closet, grab one of them plastic wiffle bats. Again, not proud of it, not my finest moment, but I was determined I'm going to shut her up by any means necessary because I've had it. So I grabbed one of the bats and I'm getting ready to swing right at her head. And one of the other guys on the team saw it, and he grabs the bat. And so now I'm tussling back and forth with him, like, no, give me this because I'm going to. And so me and him get into it a little bit. We both get sent to in-school suspension, me obviously for longer because, So yeah, just stuff like that. Not my finest moment, not proud of it at all. If I could go back, I definitely would like stop myself and be like, don't do that. And it wasn't like I hadn't reached out to different teachers and some of the adults. I definitely mentioned it to them, but nobody, they just chalked it up to kids just being kids. And so I was just like, okay, clearly I have to do this myself. Yeah. So yeah, stuff like that. Or, again, just going back to the whole sexuality thing, shooting my shot doing the whole, do you like me? I like you. Yes or no. And
Yeah.
slipping it into a girl's mailbox, or not her mailbox, but her locker. And knowing that, I didn't really like fully have feelings for her, but I'm just following the lead of what I'm seeing everybody else do. And again, trying to get the allegations up off me. Like, no, I'm not gay. See, I flirted with her.
Yeah.
So I slide the note in her mailbox and she opens it up and blast it in front of everybody. JeRonelle, why you? And so everybody, takes notice in the hallway and starts laughing. And so I'm walking off like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And I can't believe she did that. So, just stuff like that I have made a point to like really block out. And I tell my therapist, like, a lot of the social problems that I've ever had in my life have all come from and all stem from middle school. Like that whole 4-year period can always, anything that's going on in my adult life can somehow, some way be traced back to that period. So wasn't my finest 4 years. But I look back on it now and just be like, thank God I made it out.
Yeah.
I made it out of that alive, well, healthy, and wherever those kids are now, God bless them. They're full grown adults.
I feel it.
And that's that.
I'm curious. Going through that really is traumatic. And I think on a certain level, like it's easier to talk about it now, right? Because not necessarily going through it, but to one of the points that you mentioned, like a lot of the things that we go through now in life can be traced back to periods early on in life. And some of us can't make those connections. I'm curious if you're able to go back into the mind of middle school you and kind of show us a picture of how you processed through these experiences that you were going through, right? Because as a kid, and another thing that you mentioned too is like if I could go back, I would handle situations differently. But I almost think, like, from my vantage point, right? Because I didn't necessarily go through your experience, but it's like I almost think like if you went back, like, could you really blame yourself for how you handled the situations? Because I mean, you're a kid, and you're trying to understand life, and there's all these different components that are placing influence on your perspective of life, on your experience of life, and you're trying to make sense of it. So what was your mind state, and how were you able to process through, or what were the things that were going through your head as you're experiencing that in real time?
Again, just a lot of like wondering, like, what is it, that's causing, me to become the constant target, trying to figure out, okay, so they're saying it's, 1 minute it's the clothes, or the shoes. So, okay, let me go ask mom, hey, can we look at some different shoes? And she's doing the best she can as a single mom to provide. So sometimes it's like, yeah, we can't afford, these top line Jordans, so you can go impress your little not so friendly friends. We got to make do with what we got. Or 1 minute it's, again, the you talk white thing. That was what I remember getting that a lot. And it's not something that I can really control or change. It's just like, this is just how I grew up, and I'm being taught to, speak eloquently and project and all of the things. So, somebody coming up to me and telling me I talk white, it's like, okay, that kind of starts to mess with you. It's like, okay, so what does talking black look like? Stuff like that. Or even, again, just with the mannerisms thing. So it's like, okay, you gotta you got to man up. I remember being told that at one point too, like, man up, JeRonelle, and it's just like, I'm doing the best I can here. So it's just, you feel like you're getting it from all sides. You're getting it from, family, and you're also getting it from, people at school. It's just like, so really, like I said, me being on stage was the one time I felt like this is my superpower and nobody else can take this from me. This is the moment I am like, I'm putting on my cape, and now all of that other noise has been blocked out. But yeah, it was difficult. It was a lot of moments of mixed signals, like, okay, is this okay? Is this not okay? And then as far as the sexuality thing, it's like, again, I didn't really think about it too much. It's like you're not thinking about it too much, but you're trying to beat the allegations.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't really have this attraction to these girls that everybody else is hitting on. I'm just doing it. I'm just shooting my shot. I'm just, doing it because everybody else is doing it. But I don't really have an attraction to them like y'all do. Y'all are, I remember this might have been 7th or 8th grade, but it was the point of the year, toward the end of the year, and they, I don't know why they thought this was a good idea, taking a bunch of impressionable, slightly emotionally, hormonally imbalanced middle schoolers off to a camping trip for 2 days. Like,
Oh, dang.
oh, Jesus. But yeah, they did like a class-wide camping trip. And I remember, I'll never forget, on the bus ride there, I'm in this seat, and next to me on the other side is, one of the hot couples in school, whatever, we're all kids. And, as the ride is going, at one point, they're snuggled up next to each other, and they start like kissing on each other real grown. I'll put it that way. And I was just like, okay. And you know how middle schoolers are. Everybody else is kind of like, ooh. And I'm sitting over here just like, I want that for myself. I just don't know if I want it like that. But at the same time, also like, get a room, and just trying to get through the situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. And that's why I was looking forward to high school, because I knew that I would never have to see some of those kids again. Now, granted, because of the being picked on and the constantly, targeted and ostracized, by the time I got to high school, I had started to, in a way, start to build more of a shell around me. Like I still, had this desire to be, and be friendly, make friends, get to know more people, be more social. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? I remember the last 4 years. Let me try to approach this a little bit differently, and just be more of an individual, and not try to necessarily be so much of a group thing. So that first year, I ended up choosing Central High, which very glad about that.
Shout out Eagles.
Shout out to the Eagles. And I found, I would say within a few weeks, I remember walking around, because that was the thing we used to do in the mornings. We would all walk around in a circle. The way the school, so for those watching at home, the way the school is set up, think of it almost like a big giant castle. And in the very middle of the building is kind of like this courtyard cafeteria. And on, each of these 4 corners is a string of classrooms and stairs and all that to get to each floor. And, every morning it was just a routine that the student body would walk around in a circle, socializing, going to their lockers, and whatever we had to do for the day before class would start. And so one day I'm walking around and I hear like this group of kids singing, some songs that I'm very familiar with. And I'm just like, somebody performing at 7:50 in the morning? Like, what's going on? And so I find where the group is, and it's a group of 3, 2 sisters and a guy, and he's kind of heavier set. And so I just kind of stop, and I'm just kind of like, okay, well, I'm listening. And then I introduced myself to them, and they introduced themselves to me. And so it was Ebony, Essence, and Gary, and quickly became fast friends because it was like, okay, here's a group of people. They like to sing first thing in the morning. Like, okay, these are my kind of people, and yeah, I rocked with them for the majority of that first year. I had some other people that I tried to rock with as well, but wasn't the best influence. I'll put it like that. And so that that friendship kind of got me through that first year, because now your hormones are starting to take more of an effect, and I'm just like, okay. Now I'm starting to have more thoughts about guys in particular. And I'm just like, but I'm still trying, because I'm still trying to keep it quiet, because I'm just like, okay, I don't want to entertain the allegations from back in the day. And also I know that, my mom, she has her beliefs, and, growing up in church, we're taught, this is wrong. It's supposed to be man and woman. So I'm like, okay, but that guy over there on the football team, he's kind of cute. And then you factor in, now we are doing gym class. And, it's not just one of the things where it's just like, okay, everybody drop your bag and we're going to, throw balls at, a hoop for 30 minutes. Like, no, now we're being told, okay, you have to change. And so it's like, oh, so now we have to start undressing in front of each other. Like, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know how I feel about, and you're trying so hard to not let your eyes wander, but it's just like, damn, he's kind of cute. Okay, no, don't look. Just throw your clothes on, spray your Axe body cologne, and get out of there.
Not
quick.
the Axe. Not the Axe.
And we're all teenage boys at this point, so it's like everybody thinks that Axe is the answer. It's just like,
Must
no.
and Axe together, just mixed.
My God, today that locker room smelled like shit. My God. Oh, if I could go back in time, I'd tell not only myself, but everybody in that room, please, deodorant and a towel.
Literally.
Bring them.
Please change your drawers if you were sweating. Like, don't put on the same clothes. Like, please.
Well, no, because I can understand, because we're having to change quick. So the clothes is not the problem, but it's baby. Stop spraying the Axe and thinking that is going to be the be all end all. And then of course, going into high school, you also have the kids that are now starting to experiment with smoking. So whether they're smoking cigarettes or weed, it's just like, me. So you got the nerve to walk around being musty, smelling like Axe and cigarettes? You're bold. You are bold for that. So, oh, my bad. So, yeah, that first year of high school was like, okay, we're resetting a bit. And also starting to, when I'm around like my new music friends, it's like, okay, I can break out of that shell a little bit more. But when I'm not around them or when I don't see them, I'm starting to keep more to myself. Like, I'm still being cordial, still, getting along with everybody. And again, using music as my superpower. But, starting to also kind of build that shell around me, that protective shell. So it's like, I'm not going to necessarily let people get to me like they did before. So.
Look, I gotta be honest with you. For a long time, I thought investing in wealth management was only for people already making crazy money. Like people with 6 figures sitting in the bank. I genuinely didn't think somebody like me could even start building real wealth. But one of the best decisions I made was sitting down with Earl Johnson from Lexus Wealth Management. And what really changed my perspective was realizing you do not have to be rich to start thinking about your finances intentionally. When I really thought about it, what I used to spend on shoes, J's, getting my hair cut every single week, eating out constantly, and random Amazon purchases, or even buying VC on 2K so that my person's all dripped out. Stuff that felt good in the moment, but honestly did nothing for my financial future at all. What used to disappear from my wallet without me even thinking about it is now helping me build my wealth for myself and my family. And what I appreciate truly about Earl over at Lexus Wealth Management is that he doesn't treat you like you need to have your entire life figured out before you walk in the door. He helped me understand what my options were, how I could start building wealth intentionally. He really walks with you through the process. The consultation to start off was free, no cost, no obligation. And if you become a client, the fee structure is designed so that his compensation is tied to helping your account grow over time. So if you're somebody watching this podcast and you want to build a legacy for yourself and your family, you can book a free 30-minute strategy call with Earl Johnson from Lexus Wealth Management. The link is going to be down in the description, or you can visit www.lexuswealth.com/Earl to book a free introduction call and walk through your first steps towards working on your financial future. And just so y'all know, I'm a non-compensated client of Earl Johnson and Lexus Wealth Management. Lexus Wealth Management is a registered investment advisory firm, and they are a sponsor of this podcast. This testimonial reflects my personal experience and is in no way a guarantee of future investment performance or success with investing with Earl or Lexus Wealth Management. Individual results will vary. Now let's get back to the show. One of the things that you mentioned, and you kind of touched over it, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into it because I know it has a significant impact, not only with the decisions that you decided to make, but also psychologically too. Just the factor of being raised in a household where church was very prominent, but then also starting to have these realizations about yourself. It's almost like these conflicting values are clashing within to where like, am I wrong for feeling this? Am I a good person? Because I know we went to the same church. I know some of the messages that would be preached, and it's like, well, damn, like,
or not even so much the messages that would be preached, but when you get to a certain age, you start picking up on other people's responses to other people. So I would see how some of the more flamboyant men would come in, and they would have, their rings and their finery on. And I would see some of the reactions, some of the silent reactions that the other church members would give. And it would kind of just be like, okay, so that's, if someone were to, live their authentic life, that's what they have to deal with. Like, to me, he looks great. He looks fine. Yeah, he may be playing the tambourine. Yeah, he may shout a little bit more.
Why the fuck you say? He may be playing the tambourine.
But it's like, because that, back in the day.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
But to me, it was just like, okay, and when you're around other people, you kind of, well, I'll say this. I wouldn't necessarily feed into the jokes that would, or the comments, or the little, or the, I wouldn't necessarily feed into that, but I wouldn't necessarily speak up and speak against it either. I would just take note. But yeah, I definitely remember, getting to that point of like going out of high school or going out of middle school into high school And then those feelings start to kick in more. And again, you're trying so hard to beat the allegations, but it's just like, this guy's cute, or this guy's, and also, I don't know why this memory just came to mind, but this was around the time where, so you remember how, everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but like Pretty Ricky and some of those groups started making like grinding music, and everybody was all up on each other.
Yeah.
It's, you talk about, just feeling tension, because it's just like, okay, I'll never forget my first high school dance. It was homecoming, my first experience with homecoming. And, everybody's all up on each other, grinding, and it's that thing where we're wearing our business casual. Why the hell did they have us wearing business casual?
Who knows?
What was going on? I can't wait. Side note, I can't wait until we start cosplaying the late 2000s.
Oh, we were dusty.
And the early 2010s. Because everybody right now is still in their 90s and 80s parties and 70s parties. I can't wait for the day when we start having parties where the theme is late 2000s, early 2010s.
Dusty.
Because I'm coming in there with every single 2010s, late 2000s fashion that you can think of. Yeah. I can't wait for it. But I digress. But I'll never forget my first homecoming, and everybody is all up on each other and grinding, and I was one of those kids that was tasked with holding everybody else up. You got the girl that's, backing it up, and you got the dude, he's all like, hey, and I'm having to hold him up, and I'm just like, I wish I could, be in your position right now. But I know I'm a little bit more awkward socially and rhythmically at the time. The hips wasn't really moving like that. And sad to say, they still don't necessarily move like that. But that's another conversation for another time. But yeah, just having to be witness to that is, and then having to go home after and pretend that, oh, it's just fine. It was just a dance. But it's like, no, I'm feeling so many things right now. It's like a part of me is feeling jealousy. A part of me is feeling turned on. And a part of me is feeling like I'm more so specifically turned on towards him than I am to her. It's so many different things. And I got to bottle all of that up because I know that the weekend is coming in. We got to go into church and I got to present myself holy and acceptable unto Christ. So yeah, it was a lot going on mentally and emotionally that I didn't really feel like I had a place to express or share that with. I just had to keep it to myself.
Did it begin to cause a strain in the relationship between you and your mother at that time as well too? Not so much until I got to be more of an adult. For years, she would make her stance clear. And I'll never forget the first time I was bold enough to tell her. This was probably like maybe around the time I was like 16. I was bold enough to tell her, like, just so you know, I'm having, feelings about other guys. And like, I know you say, and I know that the people at church are saying it's wrong, but I've just been feeling this for a long time. And I told her about, there was one particular incident. We were at a gospel concert at church, or not at our specific church, but at somebody else's church. I don't remember exactly which artist was visiting. But they had like an altar call moment, and I didn't go down, but I sat in my seat, and I'm praying along, and I'm silently to myself thinking, okay, God, they're telling me this is wrong, so I'm repenting,
and, please take this away from me because, I don't want to go to hell. That's the thing. Like they're saying if you indulge in this, I don't, take it away. Just take it away. And so I was bold enough to tell her, this is what's going on. These are the feelings that I'm having. And, she reacted in a very like, well, thank you for telling me. And, I'm glad that you were, bold enough to tell me. And, just so you know, yes, it is wrong. And then proceeded to pray after that. And I thought that, it was all good. Until the feelings came back. And so I was just like, okay, did we not pray hard enough? I don't know what's going on, but I'm still having these feelings. And now it's getting to a point where, you start to have, how do I say that? You start to have alone time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, as most teenage boys do, when we have alone time, we discover.
We learn about ourselves a little
We
bit
discover ourselves. And boy, did I have fun. I had a lot of fun. And this is kind of an embarrassing story, but at some point she caught on because, the showers started to get a little bit longer. And I'll never forget one time she just bust the door wide open. Thankfully, the shower curtain was closed, but she bust the door wide open. She was like, JeRonelle, get out of there. Stop playing with yourself and turn off the water. And I was just like, oh my God, no, please don't say anything. I literally just stood there, meat in hand. I'm just like, oh my God. So yeah, I'm navigating all of these feelings and emotions and things and still trying to get through all these years of high school. And yeah, high school was a bit better time for me. I mean, yeah, it was okay. I do feel like I wish I would have tried to be more social, but again, given everything I went through in middle school, it's like, no, we're not going to allow everybody in like that so easily anymore. I think it was my senior year where I finally started to make the effort to try to be more outgoing and, participate in all of the different senior activities. So, I mean, I'm going to all the basketball and the football games. I'm sitting in the senior section, even though, I'm not really close with anybody like that, but I'm sitting around, Jesus, can't talk, sitting around everybody just for the sake of it. I remember I got invited to somebody's house party and I was like, okay, can I go? And mom was like, yeah, you can go. She dropped me off. Now again, given the household that I grew up in, I knew there were certain things that you just kind of wanted to avoid. And so I get in there, walk up the stairs, and everybody is around. I mean, the whole house is full. But, a lot of people are in like the kitchen area, and instantly I smell weed. I mean, high and lifted up, okay? And I walk in and everybody's just like, hey, it's JeRonelle. What you doing here, man? And I'm just like, hey, what's going on? Like, okay, I'm dapping people up. They showing me love. I'm like, okay, cool. And within about 5 minutes, I called my mom and was just like, yeah, come get me. Because I knew at that particular time, I just had like this feeling like, I don't think this is the environment for me, at least not right now. This isn't the environment for me. Because I know that, they smoking and drinking and doing whatever. And I know that she's going to flip out if it ever got to a point where, I started indulging in that, then I'm going to get in trouble. And I ain't trying, listen, one thing about it, I ain't trying to have Michelle Hadley McGhee on my back, trying to put me in punishment, trying to hide my PlayStation. I ain't trying to have that. So I called her and was like, hey, can you come get me? And, you know, she turned back around, came, picked me up, and went home. She was like, what happened? And I basically just was like, yeah, they're smoking and drinking and whatever. And yeah, I just didn't want to stick around too much. So, but yeah, still trying to make the effort to be more social. At one point, I ran also that year for, was it prom king? Not homecoming king, but I ran for prom king. Now, I don't know what what gave me the idea that running for prom king was a smart idea, especially being as kind of antisocial as I was. But I was bold. I did. I had my red blazer jacket on. That night I thought I was fresh. I thought I was real fresh. And I was like, okay, I may not win the crown, but I'm sure I'm gonna get a couple votes. Came in dead last. Ooh, it was a blow to my ego. It was a blow, but it's just like, why? Looking back on it now, I would say to myself, don't set yourself up for that. Don't do that. Like, I get that you want to try to feel included and involved, but running for prom king when you ain't talked to nobody barely all year except for, little moments in class here and there, you haven't really developed any friendships or relationships like that to where people would actually want to vote for you. Come on now. Don't set yourself up for that.
I would almost say though, bro, that boldness and that courageousness, that's a word, right? Courageousness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Even if it's not, we're making it a word today.
We're making it a word today. I think those two elements play a factor in what you've been able to create, the opportunities that you've been able to carve out for yourself.
Yeah.
The different rooms that you've been able to sit in. Like, because to think, like, to even fathom, and to your point too of like, why would I win prom king when I'm not building up those relationships, but I am still going to put it out there that this might be a possibility.
Yeah.
I think it just goes to speak on the things later on down the line in your life that you've been able to step into.
Oh yeah.
Which I definitely want to touch on and talk about.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there's this progression from elementary, middle, where it's like, yo, life fucking sucks, to high school.
Now, let me just say for the record, elementary school was great.
Okay, so
yeah, elementary school was great.
Oh yeah, that's the period.
It was middle school that was just like
elementary.
shit.
Everybody loves each other. There's nobody's
kids are just being kids.
Yeah.
I don't recall ever getting picked on in elementary school. I was still active in the little kids choir and singing the little children's songs and everything. But yeah, no, elementary school is great.
Middle school,
yeah,
shit. High school, identity and discovery. Then there came this period where you're like, okay, I am completely reinventing myself because I no longer want to wear this shell that has to confine to this casing that everybody expects of me.
Well, actually,
okay,
so
go ahead.
Going into college is really where the shell like fully formed.
Ooh, okay.
Yes, and you would think, okay, going from Omaha, Nebraska to Atlanta, Georgia, going to an HBCU, shout out to Clark Atlanta University, a brand new experience, completely resetting, don't know anyone. You would think I'd be taking every opportunity I could to really like be social and get to know and make friends with everybody. It was the exact opposite for me. Like being cordial, being nice, being friendly, but I wouldn't like open myself up that way to really like make deep, long-lasting friendships because early on I knew that if I was going to go to college, I was going to only go for music because at the time, Justin Bieber had gotten really popular. And I was determined, like, I'm going to follow in his footsteps. I'm going to be the Black Justin Bieber. And my mom was like, no, you're going to college for at least 1 year, at least 1 year. And so I was like, okay, if I'm going to go for music because it's the only thing that really intrigues me as far as studying. So I knew being a music major early on was going to be difficult, partially because our professors made that very clear. They were like, this is not a, pop star 101 program. We're here to help you become well-rounded musicians, and they always do that thing of, look to your left, look to your right. The people that you see today, in 4 years, you may not be seeing them. So you've got to really make sure that you do what you can to matriculate. That's one of everybody's favorite buzzwords. Mm-hmm. You got to do what you can to matriculate through this illustrious HBCU. And I was like, fuck it. I got all this scholarship money. I'm getting out of here in 4 years. Ain't no way I'm finna drop out. No. If I'm dead set, like I'm getting out of here in 4 years. So, I by that point, the shell had really started to fully form. I wouldn't necessarily go to, and again, this is Atlanta. So it's like, it's something to do every night. Shit is always popping. But I wouldn't really be going to the house parties. And mind you, also, our campus was not as, I hate to say it like this, not as secure as like the Morehouse or the Spelman. So ours was a bit more open to the general public. So we would always have, niggas from the hood driving through, and they would rent, either they would rent or swap out the nice cars with their homies to try to impress, the freshman ladies, trying to see who they could pick up and, all of that. And then you would have the party promoters and everybody's trying to get you to come to this club, this event. And I wasn't hearing none of it. Mm. Like, I remember the one time I did go with a group to the club, I was not happy. Because first of all, we got there, we're standing in this egregiously long line. It's hot, it's that Atlanta heat, that Atlanta humidity. So it's hot. One of the guys in front of us had pre-gamed too much. So he ended up throwing up on the concrete where we're all supposed to be standing in this large herd of people. Yeah. So everybody's trying to step over and avoid. And then, we finally get to the front of the line. Security got to pat us all down individually and everything. And finally, I get into the club. I'm expecting, okay, I've been hearing so much about going to the club all these years. Everybody's dancing, turning up. I'm walking around. This is like, for me, the beginning of section culture. Yeah. It's just nothing but people standing around, smoking, drinking, not really like intentionally having a good time, dancing to the music. So I'm just like, I could have stayed in my room. This isn't fun. I'm good. So I left early. My first year, I was not trying to hear any of that. I was like, no, I'm getting the music done. And as the next 4 years went by, that just became more and more of the norm. Outside of the only time I would really like be outside like that again is when music is involved. So at this point now I'm starting to get to know some of the music community, not only on the 3 campuses of Clark, Spelman, and Morehouse, but, starting to branch out here and there to see what Atlanta has to offer. And I start coming across like this group, this circle, if you will, of musicians and artists. And we always kind of see each other at these different events. We start hanging out, we start going out to eat after, different gigs and different shows, and developing that kind of connection, friendship through music. But outside of that, I was very much like, I'm in my room, or I'm in the music building. You can ask any of my classmates. They'll tell you, especially like my junior and senior year, that music building was my home. Like I had my dorm room, but I literally would not leave until campus security sometimes would have to come in and kick me out. And to really paint the picture for you. So our campus is here. The music building, which at the time was housed, and I believe it is still to this day, unless things have changed, was housed inside of this church called Park Street Church, which is, you have to walk all the way through our campus and through Morehouse's campus, all the way up this very long hill, and to get to this church that is, at the entry point of the West End of Atlanta, which is, for those who know, the West End is kind of where you got to watch your back, be careful and all of that. But our music building is inside this church at the very top of this hill. So I would every day with this big ass backpack and this shell of an afro, which I really don't know why people allowed me to go all those years with that afro.
Why are you doing that to yourself?
Because again, at that point, I was very much in I'm an individual bag. You can't tell me. Like I would have people tell me over the years, oh, you should get a taper. You should do this. But I was like, no, I'm going to do this my way. I'm going to grow my hair out. And I want it to be like Maxwell. Ended up giving more of a Bob Ross Joy of Painting vibe. And it is what it is. It is what it is. I just look back at those pictures and just be like, ooh, Jesus, just cut the hair.
Character development.
My God. But yeah, so I would walk up the hill with this big ass backpack and would be in this music building. If I wasn't on campus for one of my other classes, I would be up there. And every day after most of the classes would let out, I would commandeer the piano lab, the piano / computer lab, because they had a music production course that they would teach there. And I would commandeer that space. And I would lay my stuff out like it was my room. And I would sometimes have to kind of not battle, but, have a little bit of a back and forth with the other students because they would have to come in and practice piano. And they'd be like, yeah, can you turn the music down a bit? Because I got to practice. Or can you not sing right now? Because, again, I got to practice. And I would just be like, all right, okay, cool. Hurry up. Do what you got to do. Because I'm ready to blast my jams. I'm ready to do my homework. This is my space. Love you. But I need you to exit. Because this is my sanctuary, which is right above the sanctuary of the old church. So yeah, and there was one moment where I forgot what I guess she was like a secretary, but her name was Miss Jones, and I mean, like she gives me Jill Scott vibes, very Southern auntie that really gives it to you straight, but in love, but will give it to you straight. And had a beautiful voice. Shout out to Miss Jones if you ever see this, by the way. She came in, she was like, first of all, number one, turn the music down. You're too loud. I can hear you all the way down the hallway. Number two, I hear that you have a tendency to listen to a lot of the same singers. And she gave me this list of people that, I should really start listening to as far as R&B artists. And that's where I feel I really started to get what I call my R&B education. Because before then, like I knew okay, some of the major names, not only from the soul and Motown era, but your Chris Browns and all these other people. But then she started to put me on to, people like Layla Hathaway, Rasan Patterson, and, other artists who didn't feel the need to always belt and give all these churchy runs in order to be heard. They were able to paint a picture in the most beautifully vocal way. And it was like, okay, I'm digging this. So that was the bulk of my experience through college was like, I know music is full on what I want to do with my life. As far as the sexuality aspect of it, still having those off and on. I'd say the first 3 years, it was off and on, and my mom every now and again, that I remember she didn't necessarily want me to go to Atlanta because she knew that Black queer culture out there was very prevalent. And I knew it as well, but I wasn't really thinking about it at the time. I was like, no, I'm going to an HBCU. I'm trying to have my, a different world meets ATL experience. I'm trying to go to Cascade. I'm trying, and I still haven't been to Cascade till this day. I never got out there because I was so locked in and so focused on all things music. But yeah, I was trying to, focus in on that. So when I would have those moments of like, oh, this guy is attractive, and being across from Morehouse, it's just like fine ass niggas everywhere, and there's nothing I can do about it. Okay, let me just focus. And then senior year happened, and I got introduced to a little app called Jacked. And that's where shit really went left. Oh. So for those who don't know, Jacked is basically the Black version of Grindr, which If you don't know what Grindr is, just Google it. But Jacked is basically for the niggas. And at this point, again, I'm having the on and off, like, okay, maybe I am into guys, maybe I'm not. And I'm telling my mom back and forth, like, okay, I'm having these thoughts, but I'm not, still haven't acted on anything as of yet. And finally, I download this app, and curiosity immediately took over. Because now I'm seeing all these profiles pop up of so-and-so is 50 feet away. I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? So it started off, it didn't even start off, if I'm honest with you, it didn't even start off sexually for me. It started off more like a game of like, okay, so who in this campus is on the down low or, out here fucking with niggas? Like, okay, let me see, and most of the profiles would be blank because people didn't want their business out there. So I would have to try. I would make it a thing of where I would try to guess based off the profile and based off the distance. Like, okay, so the profile name is Ebony DL Dick 24. And it's 150 feet away. So, okay, who in the room feels like they fit this profile? And I'm like, okay, that must be you. Or no, maybe it could be. I don't know. And then eventually the curiosity goes from just looking at the profiles to now you're starting to message people and just, not even whole conversations, but just be like, what's up? Hey, what's up? Where are you? And so, and then from there, it eventually becomes, now you start meeting up with these guys and not even to go all the way, but to do small things like, okay, now you are, experimenting with, getting to know each other in public, or not in public, but like, ducking off to some little quiet private corner and you're kind of, feeling each other out, literally. Mm-hmm. Or like at one point, you start to get head, and I'm just like, oh, wow, that's what I've been missing out on. Oh, hell yeah. And then I went to a scholarship conference in New York. And when I say it went from 0 to 60 to 100.
Oh, dang.
Like, quick. When I got to New York, because now I'm in a city where nobody knows me. Yes, I'm at the scholarship conference, but we have time where we can break off and explore the city for ourselves. So I'm on the app and I am having a ball just seeing who's on there. And then, ended up linking up with a guy Ended up ducking off into a stairwell, getting head from him right before I had to go into one of the little scholarship conference panels. So that, had a good time. And it eventually all led to me losing my virginity my senior year of college. And at first, in the moment, you're just kind of like, okay, I'm figuring this out. I feel like this is, how I'm supposed to do, making sure that, are you okay? Are you satisfied? Are you comfortable? Like, I feel good. Do you feel good? Like we're figuring it out. Still to this day, when I hear Girl by Sid and the Internet, it takes me back every time because that was the song that was playing at the time. Every time I hear it, it's just like, I'm immediately taken back. And then the guilt set in shortly after. Because now it's just like, oh no, what have I done? All this excitement has worn off. All the adrenaline has worn off. And now it's setting in. I've just lost my virginity. And I lost it to a guy. Oh no. Does this make me a bad person? Like, oh my God, I'm going to hell. Oh my God, my family, they're going to be just so disappointed in me. And, me trying to be the good son that I am, eventually fessed up to my mom. I was just like, I have something to tell you. And I was very somber about it. And on the verge of tears. I was like, yeah, I lost my virginity. And then I threw in the part of it, it being a guy. And she got kind of quiet. And she was just like, well, I'm disappointed, and that, you never want to hear that from a black mom. You never want to hear, like, it's one thing for them to outright yell at you or pop off on you, but when they hit you with that cool, calm, I'm disappointed in you, it does something to you. I felt like I had just let her down completely. Now, did I stop fucking after that? No. I ain't give a fuck. I'm not even gonna hold you. The guilt and the sadness, it followed me around for, about a couple weeks. But going into those last few weeks of senior year, and now we're getting into finals, I'm stressed. And I needed to get that stress relieved by any means necessary. I was like, we're doing this. So, and what's really interesting about it, so on our campus, I don't know if this is like this for every school, but on our campus, once finals are done and the end of the year approaches, those that are graduating seniors, we have the option to stay on campus for that week leading up to graduation. So now imagine the campus has kind of thinned out a little bit. We don't have to deal with everybody. And so now we're all, all of us seniors, Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark, we're all just kind of like, okay, so what do we do, to keep ourselves entertained? So, naturally at this point, I'm giving in to the impulses. So yeah, senior year was very interesting. Very interesting indeed.
Was it at this time for you, on a lot of different levels, you started to break out of that shell then? Listen, it's time for you to get into therapy. Be honest with yourself. You about one crash out away from everything falling apart. And I know you talked to your homegirl and she said, you doing just fine, you good, girl, ain't nothing wrong. And I know you talked to your homie too, and he like, oh, bro, you good, keep pushing. But look, let's be honest. You've been seeing all these different types of posts, maybe from me, saying all these different things that have been resonating with you, but you haven't taken the steps, so I'm gonna make it real easy for you today. You're gonna click on the link, you're gonna fill out the form on the website, keep it real discreet, and we'll get you plugged in with a therapist who understands your experience, who relates to you, who doesn't see you as just another number, but sees you as a human being who's ready to start healing. So instead of crashing out instead of doing the thing that can undo all of the things that you've been trying to build, let's just start therapy today.
Still socially, no. Honestly, no. Like I would know how to turn it on and off though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, there would be certain moments where I would just be like, nobody talk to me, leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered. I'm not letting anybody into my personal life like that. But if it was something I wanted, whether it was sex or, you know, just to be around somebody musically or whatever, hey, how you doing? You know, turning on the charm and the friendliness of it all. So, yeah, that was my senior year. And I as far as how I got to LA, going into second half of senior year, I was faced with a couple different options. I knew deep down, I knew that I could come back home, but I knew that I didn't want to. That was like an absolute last resort. Like there is nothing back in Omaha left for me. Mm-hmm. I've been out in Atlanta for 4 years now. I feel like I want to keep exploring what life is like outside of my hometown because there's nothing left for me there. And musically, I want to keep growing and start to now pursue artistry. And I can't do that back home. So, you know, but I didn't have the infrastructure necessary to be able to like really lay down roots post college in Atlanta. And then third option was LA. I knew my dad was out there. I knew I had other family members, you know, spread throughout California. And there was an audition for The Voice. Or they were doing blind auditions in different cities. Atlanta was one of the cities, but they also had blind auditions in, or casting, I should say, casting for blind auditions in LA. And so all roads just kind of, you know, pointed to California. So I called my dad and I was like, hey, just so you know, I'm not only getting ready to graduate, so I really, really want you to be here because he didn't make it to my high school graduation because he doesn't really like traveling long distances or flying. But I really pressed it upon him like, I need you here because I don't foresee myself going to graduate school or trying to get any more degrees after this. So this is probably the last graduation type of moment I'm going to have. I need you present. And so he did what he had to do. He got on the flight. And, you know, throughout that conversation as well is when I shared with him, hey, I want to come out to LA. You know, is it cool if I stay with you? And he was a little hesitant just because of the living situation was small. I didn't realize at the time just how small it was until I got out there. But he was like, you know what? We'll make it work. You're my son. This will give us a chance to bond. Cool. So I 2 days after graduation is when I made the move out to LA. I had 2 suitcases, a suit bag, and a backpack. And, you know, I'm getting out to LA. I move into his apartment. And then that's when I'm finally able to see for myself just how small his unit is. And I was just like, okay, we're going to make it work. We are going to make it work. And the next several weeks was kind of a mixed bag because I'm trying to learn the you know, the lay of the land and figure out, okay, where is just everything period in California and LA. Also trying to see, okay, you know, it's getting closer to the summertime and, you know, BET Awards and all these other events are happening. I feel like, you know, coming out of college and coming, you know, out of this music space that I've been like, I need to be outside. I need to be hitting the ground running, you know, and also sexually again on the apps, just and now you're getting to California where now you're not only dealing with niggas, but now you're dealing with niggas who are, you know, much more conscious about their appearance because it's LA. Not to say that Atlanta niggas aren't conscious, because there are definitely some fine ass fit niggas out there. Very fine. But, it's California, so, the body image thing is even more prevalent. And so it's like, oh my God, and they're all on the apps. It's like, oh hell yeah. So I'm dipping off out of the apartment, and he's thinking that I'm probably going to explore the city. Meanwhile, I'm exploring the backseat of some guy's car, and we're getting into it, having a good time. I barely know the guy's last name, but I'm just having a ball, just living life. It got to a point where me and him, though, living together just was no longer suitable, because again, me coming straight out of Atlanta, and I'm trying to be outside, and I'm used to coming in very late hours, and he's a lot more structured, and he's like, you need to get a job, you need to get a car, you can't be coming in all hours of the night because, I'm trying to sleep. I got to be up at work in the morning. And I'm like, Dad, all of the events that I need to get to, and try to network with other musicians and artists are at night. They don't start until 8, 9 o'clock. People aren't doing events at 6, 7, 8. No, people are gathering, at 9, 10, sometimes 11 o'clock at night, and don't really, things aren't really wrapping up until 2 or 3 in the morning. And that wasn't working for him. And for me, I just knew that it's like, no, I need to find, someplace else to go. So I had asked around a bit, and, I'd asked one of the alumni that was kind of helping me get adjusted to living in LA. I asked her, hey, this is the situation, the living situation. Can you help me kind of get acclimated and, find a new place? Because I don't really have a whole lot of money. And I at the time, I think I was working at the Lakers team store in El Segundo. It's like, okay, it's a little retail job. This is easy and definitely not a whole lot of traffic at all, which was both a blessing and a curse because I didn't really have to be bothered with a whole lot of people. But there's only so much of moving jerseys around that you can do to try to appear busy before the manager of the store is like, okay, we need you to find something else to do. And I was just like, lady, there's nothing else in this store to do because nobody's visiting. I need you to get up off my back. Yeah. So, I was like, this is what I do have. I have a job, and I just need to find someplace else to stay because me and my dad were bumping heads. We're not really getting along. And that whole summer was just, it was a crash course in both of us learning each other, not only me being outside, but I remember one of the first times we, what I thought was going to be us spending time together, he sprung a lady friend of his on me. I didn't know she was coming until she popped up at the door. We're supposed to be going to the movies. I'm like, who is this? Okay, hi. You and your little red flip wig. I don't know who you are, but hey. So, moments like that, or I was like, hey, let's go. Ooh, okay. So I can look back at it now with a little less of with less hard feelings. But my first Father's Day out there that I spent with him, I wanted us to go to church. That was my only request. I wanted us to go to church. And he was, up until the day of, he was like, yeah, I'm going to go. Yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to have a good time. The day of, I'm getting up and I'm like, hey, I'm getting dressed. Are we going? Are you coming? And he was like, oh no, I'm going to stay here and clean up the apartment. His words, clean up the apartment. Basically mean I'm going to just shuffle some papers around and I'm going to just continue to sit here. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I get to church and I'm surrounded by, you know, men and their sons, you know, sometimes 2-3 generations. And there's a point where the pastor says, you know, we want all the men to stand up with their sons. And I have to sit there. And it broke my heart. It pissed me off. I walked out and I called my mom in tears because I was just like, this is all I wanted. I just wanted him to be there, you know. And I can't say, you know, I can't look at anybody and be like, oh, this is my dad. Because, you know, and it's not like there were extenuating circumstances that were preventing him.
He just chose not to.
He just made the choice not to. So yeah, that broke my heart. And I remember I got back home after the service was over and he kind of sat me down. He was like, what did you tell your mom? Because apparently after I called her, she called him and kind of laid into him being, you know, I don't know what all she said, but she
said enough.
Whatever she said, you know, it kind of caused him to understand my hurt. And, you know, thankfully, ironically, we'll touch on this more in a bit, but ironically now, 10 years later, he loves going to church. It is his bread and butter. It's the thing that, you know, gives him the opportunity to get outside the house and be social with, you know, his age group. He loves it now. He talks about it all the time. So it's just like, that's great. I love that for you. But, you know, I wish you know, that particular moment would have never happened back in 2016. I wish that would have never been the thing because, you know, I really could have benefited from him being there. So yeah, ended up moving out and found a place in Torrance. It was a lady that rents rooms out of her house. She had like this big house and she would rent rooms for $600. And I quickly, you know, we quickly got along because, you know, I would make it a point to try to help her out because, you know, she's elderly. So it's like, okay, you know, I'm helping her with different things around the house. And, you know, she's also got her grandson living with her in the other room. And he's around my age as well. So it's like, okay, I got somebody that I can, you know, kind of bond with and you know, be cool with. But that only lasted for about 6 months because the one thing she made clear up front was she was a stickler about her money. She didn't want to hear no sob stories. She was like, I need my money on the first. And the one time I got let go from a call center job that I was working at, and I went to her hoping that all of the times that I had helped her would amount to something. She was like, no, you gotta go. And it was tough, but I was just like, you know what? Okay, cool. So the alumni that pointed me in the direction of that house, I was like, hey, here's what's happening. Do you know somewhere else I could go? And it led to me staying with her. And so now I'm moving from Torrance to Hawthorne. So kind of, and so Inglewood is where I started off. Inglewood is where my dad is. Move out to Torrance, which is way, way out. So now moving to Hawthorne, which is a bit closer back in to, you know, the city. It's not LA,
yeah,
but, you know, getting a little bit closer back into the inner city. So stay out there with her, and I'm doing the best I can to make the most of that situation. And at this point, I'm going through a couple different job changes. And then eventually I get, while I'm staying with her, I do a casting call to potentially sing background for well, at the time she had her last name Tisha Campbell Martin, but Tisha Campbell, because she was looking for new singers for the weekly residency show that she would do at the Zen Lounge, which was a club out Studio City. So I go and do the audition, and they have us to sing. They also have us to dance. Thank the Lord, I kept up. I wasn't the strong. I'm no Sean Bankhead, but I kept up. And so it was myself, a guy by the name of Anthony Juwan. Shout out to Juwan if he sees this. And they also called in a guy named Tim Butler. And so we three make up this new cast of singers that are going to be working with her to, kind of freshen up this show that she's doing. And I meet her, and, things are going smooth right away. She has me singing soprano.
Okay.
It was a different thing because I'm used to taking the low note, but I'm doubling her harmonies, and so we would be doing songs like I Don't Want to Be Alone Tonight from her time on School Days. I don't let you know, stuff like that, and we would be at this club every Friday, and at the time, Tisha and Dwayne, they're together, so they know everybody in Black Hollywood. So people would be pulling up left and right. Kevin Hart, T.I., Maxine Waters. Like it would be a thing I would look forward to every single week. And it was my first official music paying job. And eventually it ran its course. And that was my first time being, not my first time being fired from a job, but my first time being let go from a music gig. Because, at that point, to my understanding, there were some things happening behind the scenes that led to some cuts needing to be made. And also at the time, I was told that, we don't feel like you are progressing as much of a performer, so, we're going in a different direction. It sucked a little bit because my family had just flown out there for Christmas to see me perform. And so now you're telling me right after that I'm getting let go, like, okay. Yeah. But I was like, okay, so this is what the industry is. You get cut and you have to keep moving. And that was the first time where I really learned, like, you can never put your eggs all in one basket, especially being in the music industry. And you can never get too comfortable in any situation. You always have to be ready to pivot, be ready to move, because things can change at the drop of a dime. But, I look back on that time still very fondly because, again, it was my first time, working in music on a professional level, a job that I really, really liked. I remember she personally bought each of us an outfit that we would wear on stage. And that was my first time wearing Zara and Armani Exchange. I was like, okay, I'm stepping up in here, fly, singing these songs. And it was a good time. And so, yeah, just my first, after that though, things really started to kind of get rocky again with the living situation, because, eventually I had to move out of the alumni, her house or her apartment, because, time had I just ran its course basically. And, I ended up finding myself now back in Inglewood in a multi-roommate situation. And so at this point, still hadn't come out yet. But I'm starting to, at least to myself, come to the realization that, yes, you like guys, and it is what it is. and not trying to fight it anymore, not trying to constantly pray it away or repent it away. It's like, no, I like guys. I would still, every now and again, I would still try to shoot my shot with girls. I remember there was this one girl that pulled up to Zen Lounge quite frequently. I thought she was very beautiful. And I would try to, sweet talk as much as I could, but I could really see like it wasn't really going anywhere. She wasn't really interested in me like that, but I was trying, you know, it's like, okay, maybe there might, whatever. I don't know. But yeah, just going through all these different changes, housing changes, job changes, find myself in the multi-roommate situation. And after 6-7 months, that kind of fell through. But towards the end of that is where things get interesting, because that's when the first season of the TV show The Four had premiered. And I'm like, okay, this is a cool show. Let me send in my audition video. And at this point, I had auditioned for every other show that had been out there: American Idol, The Voice. By the way, the blind audition thing didn't pan out, but whatever. But The Voice, American Idol, Sunday Best, America's Got Talent, all of them I had auditioned for, and all have been told no. Never made it on camera for any of them. So I send in my video, never hear back. So tail end of roommate situation, it was a lot of moving factors and moving pieces, some that I didn't know and some that I would pick up on. So it started off as 4 of us, myself, one other guy who was also a singer, and then you would have the 2 main roommates whose apartment, who it was actually theirs, and their name is on the lease. Mm-hmm. Me and homeboy, we agreed that we're going to split the cost of this 3rd room, but I'll stay out in the living room because, us both trying to be singers and sharing space, and just like, okay, this is not working. So I stay out in the living room. Eventually, one of the roommates, he has to go back home for a bit, get his life together. He's still somehow making payments, but he had to go home and get his life together. So homeboy decides to, I don't want to say sneak in, but usher in another temporary roommate who needs a place to stay.
Yeah.
And I find out because it's the middle of it's like early in the morning. And I'm sleeping on a deflated air mattress. So I'm already kind of uncomfortable. It's cold. There's a breeze hidden across the floor. I'm just like, ugh, all right. I hear the door open and I see 2 sets of feet walking. I'm like, now I know I'm kind of awake here, but what the hell is going on? Who is this? I think surely you're not about to hook up with somebody at 6 o'clock in the morning. What's happening? So eventually we get introduced, and his name is Brian. And almost instantly, I'm like, dog, I don't really know much about your friend, but he's attractive. He's cute. But again, I got that mask up. I'm not letting it on yet that I'm openly into guys. But I'm like, damn, he cute. Okay. So long story short, that roommate situation fizzles out because there was some other things that were happening again, unbeknownst to me, that were putting the whole entire housing situation in jeopardy.
Oh.
And so Brian moves out. He finds a place. Now I gotta find a place. And homeboy, he had a rather unpleasant exit. We'll just leave it at that. But I gotta find a place quickly because they're telling me you gotta be out by, April, May of whatever year. So I'm like, okay, I done lost my music job. Now I gotta find a new place to stay. What's going on? So now I end up I'm calling around, calling to these different places. I end up calling this church, and they connect me to a temporary, what is
Like
the
a
term
halfway
called?
house.
Something like that. I forgot
Or
the
like a
actual name
hostel?
of it. Not a hostel, but it's like a, like one of those living situations where, people are trying to get their lives together
Shelter?
for whatever reasons. Not a shelter. It was a step above a homeless shelter.
Gotcha.
And I'll tell you why I say that in a second. So I get there, I'm like, this place looks it looks like one of those houses out of those movies in the 90s where there's lightning striking over it, just like, dun, dun, dun. But I'm just like, you know what? I would rather take this than have to live on somebody else's couch again or be in a homeless shelter. So we're going to make it work. It was a very interesting situation because you have me, who is still somewhat fresh out of college, only at this point, I think I'm like a year and a half, 2 years removed from college. Very bright, very intelligent, but I've fallen on hard times. 4 other roommates. You have one guy who is fresh out of prison and has the attitude and anger management problems to show it. You have another guy who had mental illness issues and a bad case of body odor. God bless him. He was a nice guy, but yeah. And then you had another guy who started off seemingly very cool, but we found out rather quickly that, he liked alcohol a lot. And then the fourth guy was an elderly, kind of semi-elderly guy from Britain who was disabled and was in a wheelchair. First night, I'm sleep and me and anger management guy and the British guy, we all are sharing one room. We each have a cot in a different corner of the room. First night, I kid you not, I'm halfway asleep and I hear just this rustling, like the sound of plastic. And I'm just like, what's happening? So I turn over and I see that the guy in the wheelchair is trying to help himself out of bed. And I'm like, what is happening? And then all of a sudden I smell shit.
Oh, no.
This man has had an accident on himself. And now a homeboy with the anger problem has woken up. And he's like, man, what the fuck? You done shitting on yourself? And so I'm just like, okay, please don't wake up the whole house. Me being, the caring, empathetic guy I am, I'm just like, okay, let me just help him because I can see that he's struggling.
Yeah.
But I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, you cannot make this shit up. How did I get here? Going from graduating top of my class at an HBCU and all of the things to now I'm in a house, a temporary housing situation, a step above a homeless shelter, living with 4 other grown-ass men, one of which has just had an accident on himself. And I got to be the one to help him to the bathroom because nobody else is going to do it. And the guy who owned the house, he and I want to say it's his wife, they lived just above, but they didn't know what was going on because they're asleep. It's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So I got to help him to the bathroom. And then from there, he was able to take care of himself. But now I got to contact the guy upstairs and be like, hey, just so you know, this is what's happened. When I say the dynamic, I was just like, you cannot make this shit up. So navigating now this situation, and I'm at this point, I'm starting to feel real low. Cause I'm just like, and the account is getting, the account was already low, but it was getting like real low. And I go to a friend's birthday party, one of the guys that actually teaches cousin, may he rest in peace, cousin Eddie. He was a great guy. And he coincidentally was one of the first people I met out in LA who sensed that I was hiding my sexuality. But at the time, again, wasn't comfortable saying anything. So he would just kind of say certain stuff to try to see if I would, respond in a certain way. But I was like, no, I'm not giving you that. But sweet soul nonetheless. And it was his birthday party. So I went to sing at his birthday party. And one of the casting producers of The Four was there and came up to me afterwards. He was like, hey, I produced for The Four. We'd love to have you audition. I told him, yeah, I had previously auditioned for all these other shows, including The Four. They told me no. I don't really know if it's in the cards for me at this point. He was like, no, let me coach you because, song choice matters and just how you present yourself matters in order for them to really see that you be a great contestant. So I'm like, okay, cool. So he, the next several weeks, he's kind of coaching me on different song choice and, just the best way to package and present my story. So then I go to do the casting audition. I'm just barely getting over a sinus infection at that point. So thank God I made it through that. I do the audition. The casting producers, they're in this long little studio thing. It's cold, so I'm just trying to make it through. And they're like, yes, you're great. We'll definitely keep you in mind. So I'm thinking, okay, whatever. If it happens, great, whatever. And at this point, I'm still gigging, by the way. So I don't have a consistent music job like I did at the Zen Lounge, but I'm gigging here and there, going to different bars, just wherever I can get on. And then next thing you know, opportunity comes for me to be a seat filler for The Four. I go in, and at this point, everybody kind of knows the story. I go in, and they see me on camera, and I'm just there to, pay a bill, pay a phone bill, because we get paid for being a seat filler. They see the footage of me in the audience, and that's what leads to me being on the show. Now, looking back on it, I wish I would have been able to share more of the backstory of what was really going on. They were more concerned about, me being a music student in college. Flash forward to, okay, so, he's using that experience to, try to maneuver through the show. I'm like, I'm really struggling out here.
To say it was really struggling.
I have a story that people will really care about and want to root for me for, but y'all got to, I need the producers to allow me to tell it. So I do the show and things start to kind of change a bit, a bit more notoriety. But as the show is airing, I'm still in the house. So it's very surreal to me. Everybody's blowing me up like, oh, you made it. You're blowing up. And I'm just like, nah, bro, I'm going through a lot. But, the next few years was kind of like, okay, we're progressing. That was 2018. So going into 2019, ended up getting connected to Sunday Service with Kanye. And that's a whole interview within itself. I'll say this. It was all good until it wasn't.
Oh.
It was all good until, and really, I think that the pandemic kind of played a factor. There were different things that were happening before that were causing cracks and things, but really the pandemic is where everything kind of took a halt and took a turn because, when we tried to come back after that, after the bulk of the pandemic had lifted and we were able to gather again, you could tell that the vibe was just different. You could tell that he was different. Because, before then, he's in his faith, he's in his faith bag and he's smiling, he's very positive. And it's even reflected in the set design and the stages we would perform at. It's very flowery and earth and all of the things. When we got back, though, we're performing very stoic, doing a lot more a cappella, introducing bits of Roman Catholicism type of chanting and songs and and, you know, all of that, it just was like, this isn't as fun as it was before. And you can tell that he's been through some things, because at that point, I think the divorce between him and Kim,
Yeah.
and it was just like, okay, this is not fun anymore. So, and at this point now, I am working at a church part-time. So when I'm not singing with the choir, I'm working at the church. So trying to balance that, you know, some Sundays they'd be very frustrated because I'm not there. We're out of town. We're X, Y, and Z place. So that's 2020, 21, 22, you know, just kind of all that. 2023, I start off the year feeling kind of frustrated because I'm just like, I don't really feel like things are really going anywhere. And there were 2 specific Sundays where I cried in front of everybody. Crying in church was not something I was accustomed to, but I did. And so, yeah, I got through it, was frustrated, and I was just praying like, I need this year to turn around. I don't know how, but I need this year to turn around. I did a performance at Taco Tuesday, which is like a big singers gathering with Stevie Mackey. It's a very well-known like thing in LA. And I forgot what I was going to say.
You needed things to turn around.
Yeah, just needed things to turn around. And I was doing the thing, and the clip that he posted of me singing, it kind of makes its round. It doesn't go like viral on social media, but it makes its rounds. One of the people who saw it was Drake. I kid you not. Again, kind of 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting up out of bed. I got to go to the bathroom. Nature's calling. So I'm just sitting there on the toilet, eyes, you know, kind of adjusting. I'm still coming to. I'm just like, okay. Open my phone. I'm like, Champagne Poppy has started following you. What the hell is this? I'm like, at first I thought it was like one of those fan pages. And then I'm just like, oh no, this is really him. So I'm like, what the hell? How did he find me? Come to find out that, you know, he follows Stevie, and, you know, Stevie was telling me, oh yeah, he really likes singers. And so that's what first connected me to him. So I reach out and I'm just like, hey, I'm a fan. I would love to work with you one day. I didn't expect for him to reach out or anything, but he did. He reached out. And the next thing you know, I'm in the studio with Drake. I'm like, literally, he flew me out to Toronto, put me up in a nice hotel. Thank you, man. I appreciate it still to this day. And I'm in his studio watching him record and listening to his ideas. And he's telling me, yeah, I want you to do backgrounds on these different songs, and giving me free reign to do whatever I wanted. I'm just like, this is fucking surreal. This is crazy. And in the midst of that, I get a call from my friend Duran Bernard, his team.
Friend Duran Bernard.
Yeah. his team was like, hey, we want you to come out on tour with us this fall. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going on tour. Like, this is really happening. And Drake was the first person I got, outside of my mom, Drake was the first person I got to tell.
Yeah. Real quick, I almost forgot. As a licensed therapist, I'm big on mental health, and I'm big on making sure that you're taking care of you. And I also want to get rid of this stigma that we got towards mental health. Like, there's nothing wrong with talking to a therapist. So if you're somebody that's out there that really wants to start getting their mind right, who wants to really start understanding their emotions and being able to process things that you probably repressed, that you probably ain't talked about, that you might have been even ashamed about talking about. Or check this out. You might not be ashamed about it, and you just ain't found a person for you to talk to. You want to find somebody that's relatable, that can understand you, got a little swag, you know what I'm saying? A little swag. And they not too far removed. Make sure that you tap in with Bear Company Counseling. All you gotta do is hop down in the description, click the link, put in your info, and the front desk rep will reach out to you and get you plugged in with a therapist that I promise you, as long as you're ready, will help you to get whatever you need right up here so that you can succeed in every other avenue and aspect of your life. Tap in with a therapist today at Bear Company Counseling. Now, you can get back to the video for real, for real. I promise I won't hop back in again.
You know, from getting to record with Drake and having also to sit on that for as long as I had to, you know, not being able to say anything to anybody. I was like, oh, I want to tell y'all so bad. But yeah, even throughout the duration of the tour, I couldn't say anything. So I just had to sit with that until, you know, the album dropped right after getting off a tour. So yeah, 2023 going into 2024, you know, everything is feeling good. And at this point, I should also mention by 2023, I was fully out of the closet, not just to myself, but to family as well, because I made the decision to finally stop fighting the allegations, if you will, and just own it fully, accept it around 2020, because you know that was the pandemic, and you know everybody was having these different moments of realization about life. And for me, I noticed a couple friends early on that year had come out. You know, they had time to sit at home like we all did and reflect and just kind of look at their own lives. And so they started being more honest about their own journeys, and it pushed me, it motivated me to say, you know what, fuck it. I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. I'm not trying to hide this anymore. And some of it also was the thought of, you know, if the, not to be dramatic, but if the world is coming to a close or a dark ending because of this whole COVID thing, you know, I don't want to spend, you know, whatever is left not being honest with the ones I love most, you know, so my family, like I just couldn't bear the thought of coming around them for the holidays and holding that in anymore. So that Christmas, I gathered everybody together, sat them all down in the my grandparents' living room, and just was like, hey, you know, this is what it is. And at the time, I told them that I identified as bisexual, because I really, you know, I really felt like, you know, there is a possibility, maybe somewhere, somehow, I could, you know, still get married to a woman. But I am also openly acknowledging to all of you guys that, yes, I do like men. You know, that let's just get that out of the way. Eventually, though, as the years went by, I kind of just started taking a look at my dating track record and was like, yeah, it's mostly niggas. So what does that tell you? But yeah, so I finally made the decision to come out, and for the most part, everybody was either accepting or they didn't really push back on it. You know, my mom, of course, she made her stance clear, but the one thing I appreciate about that is she didn't, you know, push me away or throw me away or anything. But yeah, she definitely made her stance clear.
What did she say?
She, you know, basically like, you know, a lot of the older generation, like, it's wrong. You know, this is not who God made you to be. You know, and I remember actually going back to 2023, I remember at one point early on that year, we kind of fell out for a bit, because I had said something to the effect of, well, you know, being a queer artist, and she kind of stopped me. We were on the phone, and she was like, stop right there. Like, you are not a queer person. Like, I did not raise you to be that. And I was just like, I'm tired of having this back and forth, not only with myself, but back and forth with you. Like, this is who I am. And so we kind of stopped talking for a bit after that. And I'd set a boundary of like, hey, we're not discussing my sexuality anymore. Like, that's just, it's dead in the water. So, couple months went by. I'd say probably like 3, probably about the majority of the summer. And then around the time that I had to start getting ready for the tour, things kind of organically, we found our way back to each other. And she was ready to, ready and willing to help, help prepare me for tour, whatever that looked like, whether it was helping me helping me pack or saying like, okay, you're gonna need merch. Have you looked into this vendor? Or, how are you funding the merch situation and all of that? So, we found our way back to each other. Obviously, she still had her stance on things, and I had mine, but at least we were able to get to a better place. So, going out of 2023 into 2024, like I said, I'm momentum is high. And 2024, I'd started working on new music. 2024 was just kind of like an okay year. It was kind of, like I said, just riding that momentum as long as we could. No lie, I was kind of hoping that being on his album would kind of, maybe in my mind I was kind of expecting to skyrocket a little bit more, and it definitely brought on a new level of credibility to my resume. But I'm still an independent artist, still unsigned, still out here grinding, still hustling. But it's not to blame him or anything, because I'm super grateful for the opportunity. Like, yeah, still to this day, thinking about it is still surreal. But yeah, so that was 2024. And then going into 2025, I just remember, praying for that year to be like a year of continued elevation in life and career, and wanting to go, to the next level. But 2025 was definitely the complete opposite. It was a very, very dark year. Started off, I want to say probably around February, January, February, somewhere in there. My aunt had a house fire, and it caused not only the house to, thankfully the house, it didn't burn down or anything like that, but they did have to rebuild part of the back of it, because there was some sort of explosion or something. But she ended up suffering like very severe burns on her face and other parts of her body. And that was hard for me, because I'm in LA and I'm not able at that particular moment to get to her quickly like, the rest of the family is. So, I'm having to kind of check up on and encourage from afar. And I know, but also I can only imagine how painful, not just physically, but mentally, that was for her. Thankfully, as time has gone on, a good majority of the scarring has healed. There are some things that, some areas that, are kind of more permanent, but thank God that, she's good. She's in a much better place. And back in the house. The house is safe, and thankfully it didn't result in something much more tragic. Then my birthday. So it was my 31st birthday. And I just wanted all I wanted was my dad and my mom and just for us to have a sit down kind of fancier dinner for the first time in my life. We had never done that before. So I was like, that's all I want. So my mom flew into town. It was kind of a quick turnaround trip because she had to get back to Dallas for work. But I remember the last day she gave me, as a birthday gift, if you will, she gave me her old wedding rings. And she was like, when the time comes for you to finally get married, I want you to give these to your wife. And of course, I'm just like, oh God, here we go again. Like, we've talked about this. And so, there was a little moment there, but, got through it. But it was just like, why are we doing this again? So yeah, that was February. March and April go by. Then May happens. And that's where things really start to take even more of a dive because she ends up going to the doctor, complaining. Well, she ends up going to the doctor to get checked out, complaining about some sort of, pain in the stomach area. Come to find out they have diagnosed her with cancer. And I'm just like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, this is not, no, just no. That's not possible. So of course she starts asking everybody for prayers and things of that nature. And in my mind, I'm definitely like, yeah, this can't be. And so that's, well, not only cancer, but also that they wanted to operate quickly to remove it. But she wanted to get a second opinion first. So that causes more time. So now we get to June. And come to find out that my dad's baby brother, so the youngest uncle on my dad's side, is basically in the final stages of passing away he's getting ready to transition from cancer as well. Didn't know that he was sick, didn't know anything about it. And so now I'm like, another family member? Okay, this is a lot here. And then you're not only you're telling me that he's getting ready to pass from, he's getting ready to pass, but he's getting ready to pass away from cancer that, we didn't really know what was going on. So we end up having to, me, my dad, and my cousin Jared, who is my Uncle Ryan, his son. We end up having to drive out to see him because, again, we're being told that, he doesn't have much time. As we get to the house, we get inside. I go up the stairs. I'm the first one to get up the stairs, and I walk into the room where he and his girlfriend, partner, his partner and some of her family, they are there. And almost immediately as I walk into the room, I can already tell that he's already gone. Because I can see, he's gone and they're sitting there crying. So now I have to quickly turn around before my dad walks in and try to prepare him. And as soon as he walks in, he realizes it too. And then his son walks in right after that. So I'm now having to kind of take on the strong role and be there for, for both of them, but especially my dad, because he didn't even get a chance to properly say goodbye. And watching him process and cry and all of these things in real time, that was very hard. And that was also my first time, I think probably ever, but definitely my first time in my adult life watching, the process of somebody who has just passed being carried away and taken to, a morgue. And that was weird. It was very difficult to watch. But again, I'm having to kind of be strong for my dad. So that happens. Not even a whole month later, I get word that my other uncle, so now this is my dad's other brother, is in the stages of getting ready to transition. And I'm just like, and he, for years he's had a multitude of other health issues. And now they're saying that they're finding traces of what could possibly be cancer. So I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. And he lives out in Colorado, so we weren't able to get to him. He ends up passing away. So all of that is weighing heavy on me, and I got to now fly out to Dallas, Fort Worth, to go and see about my mom and care for her, because she has to have surgery to remove, the cancer. So get to Texas, long story short, I remember getting through the majority of the day, as we are waiting, myself and two of her friends, kind of like spiritual prayer partner, prayer warrior friends. They're off to the side. They're because they love to talk. So they're over there and I'm kind of over in my own little corner. Finally, the doctor comes out and she says, hey, just to let you know, the surgery was successful. We were able to remove the bulk of what we saw there. Then she sits me down and says, just so you know, it's stage 4. And at this point, I'm like, now all of the emotion is coming out, because I'm just like, what the fuck is happening? What the fuck is really happening? Because there's no way, you've got to be fucking kidding me. There's no way that she just got diagnosed in May, and now you're telling me it's stage 4. What the fuck? How did this happen? And so she kind of draws this diagram of what all they removed, and they had to do a total hysterectomy. It was very hard to have to take all that information in. Then of course her friends come over and they're processing this information and trying to be strong and there for me as I'm clearly damn near inconsolable. There was one small moment I did laugh a bit, I'm not even gonna lie, because it was very like Golden Girls type, like they were just talking, and I'm just like, hello, I'm having an emotional breakdown here, and y'all are just going like, please, not right now. But yeah, So I'm just like, I'm having to take all this information in and deliver it to the rest of the family who's wanting to know how she is, but also try to compartmentalize a bit because I know that for the next couple days, I still have to be there and be strong for her. So eventually they let me go see her. I fall straight into her arms and, hug her and cry. And, she's very weak at this point, but, she's responsive. And I just remember the next few days just hoping like they would give us the all clear to let her go home, especially because I had a flight already kind of booked for a couple days out. So I was like, I'm just hoping that they will give her the all clear. Thankfully they did, but I remember one specific moment toward the end of the hospital stay where there was a young lady in the adjoining hospital room and she was having some sort of breakdown, psychotic moment. Something was happening because she was screaming like it. And at first we thought it was like a scream of pain, but at some point it was like, okay, this feels like you're being tormented, almost like spiritually tormented. Like the way she kept screaming and the way that nurses kept having to try, we could tell through, the wall that they were trying to like hold her down. And so my mom, being, the spiritual prayer warrior and being, connected to God the way she is, she gets up. She asked me to help her up out of the hospital bed. And mind you, can't barely walk. She asked me to help her up. She walks over, puts both her hands up against the wall, adjoining, to the next room, and starts praying and speaking in tongues and asking me to hold her up, obviously, so, she doesn't fall or anything. But the way that she asked me to kind of hold her was like, I wish I could like really replicate it, but it's like in a way where she's protecting me as I'm holding her up, in a way of like, whatever it is that's bothering this woman next door, don't let it come anywhere near him or me. And I just thought that was so fascinating. I thought like, here we are, this, you've just been given this diagnosis and you're clearly in a weakened state, can barely do anything for yourself right now, but you have the faith, the strength, to get up and still pray and intercede for somebody else. I'm like, that's one of those moments that is just like, not just the strength of a woman, the strength of a Black woman, but the strength of my mom. Like that is one of those moments I will carry with me for the rest of my life. So we get out of the hospital, and I remember praying for her and hugging her and praying over her right before I had to leave. That was in July. And of course, they're telling us you're going to have to go through chemo, and the type of cancer that she had, and it being stage 4, they gave us kind of a grim prognosis of like, it is very likely that you may pass away from this, but because we were able to remove most of the cancer and with, multiple rounds of chemotherapy, you will be able to at least see a couple more years. So I'm in between tears and processing information. I'm just like, okay, let's just take it one day at a time, get through this chemo and pray that things turn out much better. So that's July going into August and September. And at this point, I'm back in LA. I'm doing I'm preparing for like an art gallery show it's like a multi-sensory experience, an art gala meets music experience, myself and a couple other artists and singers and musicians. So I'm having to handle that, and check on mom from, miles away via the phone. I'm checking in on her constantly. And thankfully, at that point, we have, a network, not only her two sisters, but, family and cousins out in Texas. And of course, her friends that are, traveling out there to see her, spend time with her, make sure that she's good. So I'm like, okay, this is hard for me, not being able to physically be there, but I know that we have a good support system. And so the first 2 rounds of chemo get done, and then we're being told that it's not quite progressing as much as we would like. And, they're wanting to maybe look at an alternate route. So they wanted, and I know it was a lot for her on her body as well. So she opts to do just immunotherapy and just see if that helps, and start looking at other holistic things, and just, seeing whatever we can do or whatever she can do, I should say, to keep up her strength and try to fight back. And it got to a point for me not being able to be there. And then at one point we had to start a GoFundMe. That's when it really kind of broke me down. 'Cause at that point it's like, now we're having to ask for help from not just family, but now we're having to involve other people. Now I'm having to let down this wall, this shell that I've built and be vulnerable outside of the music and tell people, here's a very vulnerable part of my life that I'm experiencing right now. And not only do we need your guys' prayers and love and support, but if y'all have any money to donate, please, because, we're fighting to help her, pay for chemo treatments and bills and all this stuff. And I remember at one point in one of the dress rehearsals, the director kind of pulled me to the side, because he could see it on my face. He was like, what's going on? You've been, very silent, very distant. And I couldn't even speak. I just showed him the screenshot of the GoFundMe, and I lost it right there. Cried, got through it, and, yeah. Then we get to October, and now we're being told that there are tumors present. And so now I'm just like, what else? And now we're having to have the get your affairs in order conversation.
This progressed really fast.
Yeah. And it really, again, I'm having these moments where I'm letting the emotion out, but still trying to push forward. And mind you, also, let me interject by saying this. I had dropped a project, an EP, towards the top of the year. So, I'm supposed to be in promotion mode. I'm supposed to be out here performing and pushing that, but I can't even focus because everything it's just happening again and again and again. Something is happening, to somebody in the family. At one point, my grandfather, his health, he's aging and he's losing strength and not able to walk and in and out of the hospital, or he fell, and then this family member over here, having to console them because they're grieving. It's just, ooh, it was a lot. And like I said, now we're having to have the get your affairs in order conversation. So now it's starting to set in that we're running out of time. And I remember one point where she was on the phone. We had to have her, one of the doctors / nurses specialists, and my 2 aunts. And, they're discussing treatment options and different things. And I just had to put the phone down, walk into the other room. I put it on mute, but I walked into the other room of my apartment, and I screamed / cried, because it's just like, I can't hold this in anymore. And you're telling me that my mom is going to die. And I can start to see now visibly, even though it's through the phone, but I can start to see, she's getting skinnier and thinning out, and she's still smiling and still got makeup on her face and things of that nature. But it's like, I can see it's starting to take a toll. So she flies out to Houston. They tell her, if you can somehow get to Houston, you'll be able to see a specialist that can handle not only this specific type of cancer, but this particular treatment of the tumors, to see what can be done, at least to shrink them. Not even necessarily remove them at this point, but just to shrink them. So she flies out to Houston by herself. And I'm just like, and this is on a Sunday, mind you, where I'm working. So I'm not able, again, another example of me not able to be there physically present for her, and knowing that she's traveling by herself in a very weakened state. Come to find out that she had a little fall at some point toward the end of the trip. But thankfully she did make it there and made it back, and was able to talk to the specialist. And they were like, well, we have like this super chemo regimen that we would like to try. There are no guarantees, but we would at least like to try it and see if it works. So they give it a try, and long story short, it wasn't looking too good. Didn't really see any success with it. So now we get to November, and I am asked to sing at a cousin's wedding in San Antonio. And at that point, the visitations are regular between the other family members. I hadn't been out there to see her since the summer, but the other family members, including her 2 sisters, now they're out there for several days, helping to, again, get final affairs started, bills, get information collected, and just see how they can help. But they have to come back to Omaha. And so I'm in San Antonio, and she is, the 2 aunts, they're back in Omaha. So there's a string of like 2-3 days where she's left by herself. And, we're calling, we're texting, we're trying to check on her. And by this time, again, with, the weakness kind of taking over her body, she's not really able to text very long. So it's like very short, and the typos are getting obvious. And so we're just like, okay, she's not answering, or she's answering very like sketchily. And so we had a cousin of ours drive over, check in on her just to see, make sure that she's, okay. Finally, she gets in and she's like, yeah, she's not doing too well. And even my mom, who was in the background, she was on the phone like, I can't be left alone anymore. So I make a plan to, after the wedding in San Antonio, just fly straight to Dallas and, spend the week with her. My plan was to spend the week with her, fly back to LA for that weekend, go handle some business, change out clothes, fly right back. I get to the apartment, open the door, throw my bags down, and I can hear she's laid on the couch. She, at this point, she's not even able to sleep in her bed anymore. She has to lay on the couch, very stationary. I get there and all I see is just her hands up like this. She's laid on the couch and her hands are up like this. And she's like, JeRonelle, like very faint, very weak. And I'm just like, I'm here. I run straight to her arms and I hug her. But I can also see for myself now in real time just how much of a toll this is taking. The hair is gone. She's super frail, super skinny, swelling in the legs, all of it. Like it's bad at this point. So I try to sit her up just to see, if we can get some water in her, because at this point she's also very dehydrated. And I remember I sat her up, and pushed the walker up against the couch so she would have something to hold on to. Ran to the kitchen to grab some ice chips, because at that point that was like one of the things that she could handle. I turn back around and all I see is just her shaking, and it was just like, I can't, like, so between dealing with her, so I'm like, okay, maybe I should help her lay back down. Or at one point I tried to help her, stand up, tried to help stand her up to see if we could get her to the bathroom. Couldn't even do that. So at this point I'm like, okay, we are in a dire situation. And, everything in me wants to cry more and more, but I'm having to contain it because I'm like, no, we are here to be strong for her and help her whatever way we see fit. So I call her nurse, I called one of the nurses and I'm just like, hey, what can we do? Because she's not doing well. And they suggest that we go to the hospital. So the ambulance pulls up. They kind of do some quick diagnostic work on her. They say she's dehydrated. We're riding off to the hospital. We get there, they do some testing, and long story short, they tell us that, yeah, she doesn't have very many days left. We're going to have to, consider hospice, whether it's at-home hospice or hospital hospice, but we don't have much time. And so, again, having to compartmentalize everything. And, I take moments here and there to kind of duck off into the bathroom and cry and get all of it out. But yeah, so now I'm having to alert the family and work with the staff to try to coordinate and see what we can do. We end up setting up a plan where we are able to get her checked into hospital hospice, because trying to do it at home, we wouldn't have the infrastructure and I would have completely lost my mind. But we get to, we get her checked into hospital hospice, and in the process of alerting the family, it's like, okay, how do we get the family to be able to say their goodbyes? Or if nothing else, at least how do we get my grandma, her mom, up here, to Texas to say goodbye? So a couple of the cousins, they drove with my grandmother overnight to get to see her. And one of her longtime friends who lived in Georgia flew out to see her as well. And, obviously my aunts, they had already been with her. So, they were just able to keep up on the phone. And yeah, everybody was able to see her. And obviously it was a lot for them to see her in that state. I'd never seen my grandmother cry before. So to see her walk in and see her daughter in that way and have to walk out and hold her up while she's crying, that again, that was a lot for me. And I'm having to also alert my dad, who has already lost 2 brothers, his final 2 brothers. So he's already feeling like I'm all alone and I don't really have anybody. And now I'm having to tell him, by the way, your ex-wife, she's getting ready to check up out of here as well. Yeah, but thankfully everybody got to see her, say their final goodbyes, whether it was, in person or on the phone, FaceTime, whatever. Unfortunately, my grandfather, he wasn't able to, make it out in his condition, so they had to talk on the phone. And then we get to that Friday, and by this point, she's just barely responsive. That Wednesday and Thursday, she came alive one last time because of the fact that everybody was there. As weak as she was, still trying to crack a joke here or there, telling us, make sure that everybody, after the memorial, everybody dances. I don't want y'all just crying and everything. Make sure that everybody gets up and dances and don't y'all put me in no wig or nothing. Just, one of her wishes was to be cremated, that was a little rough for me, because I'm just like, but I mean, it was rough for me, but at the same time, it was better, I think, ultimately that way than having to go through the trauma of having to walk up to a casket and see her in such a frail state. So I'm just like, if we have to go with this option, okay. But we get to that Friday, and the friend from Georgia, who again is a strong prayer warrior friend, who actually ended up eulogizing her at her memorial. We asked her later on, would she be willing to do that? And she said yes. They had a moment where it was the 3 of us, and she was standing by her bedside, and she had started to sing a bit of How Great Thou Art. And she was just like, well, you got a choice to make. It's up to you. Do you want to stay and fight, or are you ready to go? And Mom said she was ready to go. And of course, that just broke my heart even more. But, we accepted it. And so that was that. But eventually she had to get back to Georgia. So the rest of that weekend, I'm in the hospital with her by myself. And at this point, she had pretty much, stopped responding. Like, her body was still showing signs of life, but my theory is that shortly after that conversation, and by the end of that night, her spirit had left. That's my theory on it. That's how I personally feel just looking back at it. But the physical body was still showing signs of life throughout the weekend. So I'm in the hospital room with basically just her body at this point. Kind of like a watchman. And the nurses, they're coming in every couple of hours to change or to to wipe her down or, to shift her body or whatever. And I'm watching super carefully because it's just like, listen here, y'all not gonna treat my mama any kind of way. Not to say that they weren't trustworthy. There was one nurse I was just like, okay, watch how you handle her. Like, care. It's like kind of like a newborn baby. Like, watch the head. This is still a human being. There's still signs of life here. Like, don't just come in moving and shifting whatever kind of way. But at this point in the hospice process, they're giving her, basically they keep telling you we're doing whatever we can to make her comfortable. So that means upping certain dosages to kind of let the body signal to the body it's okay to let go. But for whatever reason, the body is still going. So we get through Friday, we get through Saturday, we get through Sunday. And at this point, I'm just kind of like, I have moments where I'm looking over and I'm just like, it's okay to let go, which is hard for me in moments of crying and all the things. But I'm like, it's okay to let go. We get to Monday and they come in and they're like, we have to, at this point, it's been basically a week of her being in the hospital. And they're like, well, we have to look at other options to kind of let the body know it's okay to let go, including they wanted to give her a catheter basically to let some of the rest of the fluid drain out of the body. And at first I didn't want that for her, and she made it clear when we first got to the hospital she didn't want a catheter because she felt it was too painful. But I made the call at this point. I'm like, just do whatever you have to do. They do the catheter, fluid is draining out of the body. They do one last body shift, and I'm standing up, again trying to make sure that her head isn't being, her head and her neck are still being supported. And I look at her and I can see like this one last gasp, and then that was it. And I just kind of sat back in my chair and I'm just like, can y'all check on her? Because she doesn't look like she's breathing anymore. And so they check on her and they're like, oh, well, it seems like she's still, the body is still active. So a few minutes go by and I'm just like, no, check again. Because she's not, like, the body isn't breathing, gasping, nothing is happening. So they check and confirm that she passed. And so of course, now I got to call and alert everybody. And one of the cousins that came down, I should also mention my cousin Angie. She and my mom were definitely very close growing up. She was staying at my mom's apartment, kind of keeping watch over that while I was at the hospital. And she was there to kind of, when I needed a break throughout that weekend, she would kind of come in and just, sit there and keep my mom company. So I called her, she rushed up, and she was there to carry me as they are having to, put the body in a bag and take it off in the elevator. And at that point, again, I lost it. It gave very much Morris Chestnut in The Best Man Holiday. That scene where he just finally crashes down and cries. When they took her on the elevator, that's again another moment where it like really set in for me, like she's gone and not coming back, and I can't follow her any further for security reasons. So, yeah, the next few, and mind you, that was the week of Thanksgiving. So, the next few days was like, the next few days were spent in Omaha, around family, and trying as best we could to make the best out of that. But it just, for me, it was just like, let's just get through this and get it over with, because now we got to get back to Dallas. Mind you, I hadn't been back to LA in over a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because I'm going back and forth between Omaha and Dallas Dallas/Fort Worth, to clean out her apartment, and then back to Omaha to now prepare for this memorial. The memorial happens, we get through it. I end up singing Precious Lord. One of her final requests was to play a video of me singing Precious Lord from my graduation, my college graduation. But the video, of course, the video didn't work. So I ended up having to sing it live, but it worked out for the best. I think in the moment, it hit home much more, me singing it to her as a tribute to her in person. Kept it together throughout the whole memorial, yeah. Finally, get back to LA, and around this time, it's starting to be, full on holiday season, getting into Christmas and all the things. And they're like, we have an insurance check, you're the beneficiary, and we need you to sign and send in this paperwork to confirm, and then we'll send you the money and all that. So, long story short, I ended that year doing one of the things that I had often talked about with her, which was paying off my student loans. The last of my student loans, I was able to pay off using the insurance check from her passing. That was my Christmas gift to myself. And I'm just, in my mind, I was just like, girl, you really had to die in order for me to be able to pay off my student loans? Like, what the hell? Like, what do you mean? So, that was just a little bit of light to try to end what was a god-awful year. And I pray and hope that my family and I never have to experience a year like that ever again. And I knew that I had to get back into therapy. Like, I had done therapy from like 2021 through 2023, kind of took a break 24, but I knew, like, no, I have to lock back in with my therapist, because there's been way too much trauma that has happened as a result of everything, people passing and all these things. So, and also, mind you, cut my locks in right before I went down to see her. So she did at least get to see me with no hair, which I know she was like, oh, you look like you did when you were younger. So I was like, okay. So coming into 2026, it's just been a lot of grieving and figuring out what's next and how to move forward. There have definitely been some moments where, the emotion still comes out, and I'm I let it out when it does. I keep having this moment of like, is the other shoe gonna drop? Like, am I gonna have like that one big crash out cry? Or is it just gonna be like these small waves of grief and getting through that? So far, it's just been the small waves, but I'm just, taking my therapist's advice and just being like, okay, just let it happen if and when it does. I will say one of the lighter moments that I've noticed this year, apparently me cutting my hair has kind of turned up the attractive level a notch or two. Cause I remember when I remember around February, around my birthday month, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be outside. And also, let me say this, coming into 2026, I had made the decision, like, I'm going to fully live my life for me, especially now that she's gone. I have to live my life for me. And so, being outside a little bit more. So all of February, I was outside. And the compliments kept coming, of men and women, but definitely the niggas. They was like, oh, you look good, with the haircut. And I was just like, okay. I was taking in all of that energy, like, I appreciate it, it made me feel good. There's also part of me that was just like, so what are y'all saying? I was ugly with the locks? Like, it was like that scene in Dreamgirls, like, am I ugly to you, Curtis? Like, what are y'all trying to say? But, overall, I'm like, okay, rocking the low/bald cut. And I've been having fun with it. It's kind of refreshing not to have to worry about, lock maintenance anymore. And definitely it was stressing out my hairline. So, pray saints, pray, because I need.
Said that salute was getting a little further back each.
It was getting real thin right up in here. I was like, Beyonce, send me some sacred drops, sis, because it's getting real weary right in this front little area here. But yeah, so making the best of that. And I'm working on finishing a new project. I call it my distraction project because of all the grieving. I'm like, I need to be busy doing something. So I've been hard at work over the last few months. Kind of honestly started in October. But definitely as the year kicked up, is like, no, I need this to stay busy and to stay sane. So I've been working on new music. I'm very excited, as with any new project that I put out, but I'm very excited about this new music because it still feels authentic to me, but it feels fresh sonically. It feels fresh lyrically and melodically. It feels fresh. I've been working with 2 or 3 different talented writer, producer, artist friends of mine. And it's been really cool to kind of have different points of view and have that extra assistance to tell these different stories. And yeah, I'm excited to just kind of roll it out over the coming months. I was telling somebody the other day, like, I'm at a point now, this will be project number 6. When the full body of work does come out, it'll be project number 6. And I really want it to take off. I want industry plant allegations. Okay. I want people, I'm joking, but I'm also lightweight serious. I want people to be like, oh, you must be a signed artist. Like, no, we're independent. Now, if you would like to sign me and put a nice budget in my hand and make sure that I am a priority artist, we can talk business. But yeah, like I'm really excited about, this next body of work, and pushing it and promoting it, and seeing, Duran, he won his Grammy earlier this year. And so to see a fellow Black queer artist get that recognition, it put the battery in my back even more to be like, no, I'm going for my own dreams. And I want to be able to contribute as well to the conversation, not just around Black queer artistry and especially from a male point of view, but just R&B in general. I want to be able to really contribute and have my name be thrown into the conversation, because for so long I feel like people have just come to know me for just singing, just being a great singer who happens to put out music. And I'm like, no, I am a full-on artist and I want to be seen as that, So yeah, I'm still finding my way, still figuring stuff out. But at least on the music end of things, that's where things are. Things are headed for 2026. I'm optimistic. Because I will say this, in spite of how 2025 ended, the last project I put out is my highest streaming project to date. So there's a little bit of pressure there because, you kind of want to keep elevating and top yourself a bit. But I'm just like, whatever be, will be.
If you had to pick a song off of your latest project that kind of speaks to this experience of life, and to really tie everything back in, man, we started off this pod with just like identity in music and singing being the connecting factor. And you've told this very descriptive and eloquent story.
You can say I talk too much. No. We went a little long today. It's okay.
No. Like, genuinely, like it's eloquent and descriptive in the fact that you've painted a picture of how music has been interwoven in your life and just these different identities that you have either embodied or shedded or like really stepped into throughout the process. And all throughout it is this theme of grief, whether it's grieving who you didn't know you were, grieving becoming this new version of you, grieving the loss of people who you genuinely care. Like there's this grieving factor. And so my last question for you is, what song off of your most recent project really encapsulates this experience for you? And if you're open to it, could you give us a little snippet?
Well, actually, so let me go back to a project that I dropped in 2023 called Regret and Reflect. That project was kind of based off of, the pandemic years, the COVID years and everything. And there was a song on there that I start the project off with called Isolate, where I go into a bit of detail about, my upbringing and having that protective shell and not wanting to let anybody in. And I find that song rings true even now. It says, feeling like I need to break out, 'cause all I do is isolate now. Overthinking in my head, gotta let somebody in. Think of all the time I've wasted, content with being isolated. Overthinking in my head, gotta let somebody in. Yeah, it's not the, not the best vocal, kind of early in the morning, but But yeah, that's genuinely how I feel. Like I'm working to let people in more to, more of my life, not just the singing part of it. I find that, me sharing my grieving journey has resonated with a lot of people. Now, I don't want to get into a point where we start trauma bonding. Absolutely not. That's not what this is. But, it's resonating with people. Now, am I at a point yet where I can start to write songs specifically about that experience? Not yet, because it's still kind of fresh for me. So this next project will be more more dating and in the streets based, But at some point, I'll get to a point where I can start to, possibly with the next project after that, because I'm always kind of trying to think of, what the next thing will be. Yeah, so maybe by the next project, I'll be in a good place where I can start to open up more about, that part of the journey, and even just the last 10 years with me being in LA. So much has happened, so much growth and evolution. So that'll be something that I look forward to unpacking more through song. But even now, just opening up more about different facets of my life here and there, to a degree, because everybody don't need to know everything. But yeah, I'm just excited to kind of open up a bit more, give people a fuller picture of who I am, and hopefully that will lead them to really want to get to know me even more musically and artistically, and want want to hear and see more and put my name in the conversation more. So yeah, so I appreciate you for allowing me this space to really give a more expansive picture. Because I typically, when I do get asked or get the opportunity to interview, it's very like kind of quick, more question answer based. And again, it's usually based solely on the music stuff. So for me to have the opportunity to, again, just unpack more and share different little tidbits and stories, the good and the not so good. I appreciate you, man. And just looking forward to 2026 being a much better year than whatever 2025 was. I don't ever want to experience a year like that again. But yeah, good expectations for the rest of this year and what's to come.
I'm back, and you made it to the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and you actually got some of the things in your room picked up. If you are somebody out there that feels like they have a story and you wanting to share it on this platform, I'm all for it. Down in the description, I have a form that you can fill out where you can detail what your story is. From there, my team, which is myself, will check out your application and see if that story is something that we're able to bring to life on this show. I want to bring as many stories as possible, and I'm not trying to charge you for it either. So if you have a story and you want to tell it on here, fill out the form, click the link, let me know when you do. Make sure also too, in those other links, go ahead, give me a follow and let me know that you filled out the form, so I know, because I get a lot of them. And if you just fill out the form and never actually interact, it might get lost in the sauce. But I appreciate you for making it all the way through the episode. When you clean your room, you truly can change your life and change your reality. We out.